What's up, everyone? I wanted to talk about something else, something new today. It's the topic of confidence, which is quite an important thing. Um, Everybody says that they want to be confident, or they want a partner, or they want to be with someone who is confident. So, um, this is what I want to talk about. It's kind of something that everyone aspires to, but what does it mean? What is it? Why is confidence something that everyone wants, and how does it actually work? What does it mean when someone says like, "Oh, I'm not confident," or "So and so is confident or not confident"? I think that there's kind of like a general way of looking at this. There's a general perspective that's rather superficial. So what I have to offer is that I've investigated the idea a little bit deeper. Um, I've gone and I've thought about it and I've investigated it and I've um, found out that the way it works is actually quite interesting, and I think sharing something about that could be helpful. When people say that they are confident or not so confident, or even talking about someone else, it's a blanket statement, right? It's not looked at as much deeper. But the truth is that some people are usually confident in one area and not so confident in another area, and sometimes those areas are related in a conspicuous way, and sometimes you would expect them to be related but they are not, such as uh, someone is particularly good looking, and you would expect them to be great at public speaking, because what do they have to be nervous about? But you very often find and meet people who are very attractive but lack confidence in speaking publicly or socially or something like that. Why is that? Um, and there are so many other examples like this, right? Similarly, you can find the reverse, where someone is very you know unconfident in some areas, but somehow when you don't expect it, they have a lot of confidence. It's because these things are relative, and I think it's really important to kind of understand why and what that means. uh, when we talk about, like, you know a sense of confidence, it's usually something that's happening where you are assessing what in your mind, in your eyes, qualifies as good, as in high quality in a domain, and simultaneously you're aware of how you feel or how you see yourself in that same domain. And it's really easy to understand this when you put numbers against it. Let's take drawing. So, someone who may have studied art or has been passionate about art or knows a thing or two about art and has a certain way of critiquing things and a certain way of looking at the world, might set a very high bar for themselves and say that, to be good at drawing, you've got to be at least as good as, and they have an image and the perception in their mind. They might be thinking of, I don't know, Da Vinci, um, anyone, right? Um, and that person could have been practicing art for a long time, but their impression of themselves is not clear quite as good as where they see themselves. So they might think that a person who's good at drawing or good at art would be a 8.5 out of 10, whatever their subjective view of that 8.5 is. And they, on that same scale, fall at a 4. And that 4.5 in the difference there, though it's subjective, feels very real and is internalized by the person. And that gap is the lack of confidence. And what happens is that typically most people, especially in the modern world with so many, ways to compare ourselves and things to always, to kind of judge ourselves against, we would fixate more on the 4.5 that we are bad at than the 4 that we are good at. And that magnifies in your mind. For example, when you go out, let's say you're in a situation which you really care about. You're in a business meeting, you're in a pitch, you're on a date, and it's particularly important for you to present yourself in a way that you'd really like, in your best light. The pressure of that, even if you might be skilled in a certain area, maybe for some reason on that day it's important for you to be funny. And your idea of someone who's funny is at a certain level, you're at a certain level, you're not super confident, but if you didn't care, you would give it a go and you'd probably hit some and you'd miss some. But with the added pressure of the context being super important, you hyperfixate on where you fall short, even if it's just a little bit, and then you get nervous, and then you fumble, and then you could even perform even worse than you would otherwise. So, the difference between your standard, and your self-perception. That is confident, not confident, these scales, and they can be in different areas. They're not related really to any kind of objective truth. That's what matters. That's what's worth recognizing. And once you become aware that the mechanism is happening in your own mind, it's in your own perception, it's not a fact, it's not a reality, it's a subjective comparison, then you should become aware at the same time that then, so I'm not bound to feel the way that I feel about it. I'm not required to feel the way. It's not factually true. It's not also essential that other people will have the same perception, because their standards might be different across the board, and also their perception of you might be different as well, right? So there are ways around this as well, in terms of, if you were to, for example, you had an area where you wanted to be confident, but you weren't because you thought, only when you achieve somewhere, it could be even subliminally, subtly, where you're not even aware, you're like, if I was at that level, I would feel good, but I'm not at that level. So therefore, I'm here, so therefore I don't feel confident. If you lowered that standard, that could change a lot in how you feel and perform in that thing, or forget about the standard. You just act. Coaches in areas, if it's like a sports coach, they will often tell you certain things to help you to forget, if you were holding yourself to a standard, to help you forget about that, and also help you forget about your self-perception, to make you focus on incremental objective growth. Like, you want to be better at tennis, you're struggling, it's like, hey, just get faster. Hey, just improve your front stroke. Hey, just improve your backstroke. Just get a little bit better, just day by day, just keep working at it, just practice, just show up. Then don't think about XYZ thing, because then you're just focused on progress, and assessing yourself becomes less important. Sense of confidence becomes less important. It actually removes that hurdle. So I think that, if you know that, again, like this mechanism and how it works, and again, the fact that it's just totally relative, like they're relative to each other, they're subjective, one is on a relative spectrum, the standard, another is the relative scale of self-perception. They are also sort of like relative to each other, working in a different way within you. And these relative levels of relativism, or relative levels of relativity, worth acknowledging. The minute you become aware of it, you become, you can then have insights into how that's operating and functioning into yourself. And those insights themselves will unlock how you can navigate them, overcome them. Awareness is very powerful. And just knowing that something is not set in stone, and not so just, and also not just having a blanket view on it, like, I'm not confident, or I'm not a confident person, or whatever, so I can't do X thing. Knowing that actually there are layers to it, and they're just relative, and so these things can change. I think helps open up some space, and I don't know. I think that's a slightly more deeper view on confidence, and if you're aware of that, I think it helps. It's helped me, so that's why I'm sharing. And confidence is an important thing, because I've said before that confidence is like the electricity that powers intelligence. The light bulb of intelligence needs, you can see, people who aren't perhaps, or seem to be so intelligent, operating with a lot of confidence and therefore impacting in, you know, having a huge impact, and people who perhaps are very intelligent but don't have the confidence, and so therefore aren't being fed the energy to exercise that intelligence in the way that it could be. So it does help, and so it is an important, trait or quality, and it is worth highlighting. But yeah, just go beyond the surface and investigate, and let me know what you think.